I'm Ryan Stevens.
Dr. Taylor Waters.
I'm Ben Oliver.
Welcome to the Supra Human Show, yeah?
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Supra Human Show. I'm your host, Ben Oliver, joined with Ryan Stevens and Dr. Taylor Waters. So, this must have been around 8 or 9 episodes ago. God, we've done it. We're over 30 now.
Yeah, I know.
This
Yeah,
is
we're
episode 30 or 31.
We're racking up.
So yeah, around 8 weeks ago, we spoke about starting our preps or what we were doing, because I know you guys had already started, or Taylor, you had started early.
2021.
Yeah, 2021. Ryan started 21 days ago. I should have started 21 years ago. But we basically just went into the different approaches that we each were going to take for this photo shoot prep. And now we are, when this will get aired after the photo shoot, so we could do a follow-up as well. But we are currently
7 days out?
So
eight
we
days.
fly out
Yeah,
in
we
7.
fly out
Fly
in
out
7
7.
days. We're 8 days out from the photo shoot right now. So we wanted to just kind of do an episode to talk about how the prep has gone for each of us, if we've had to change anything along the way, any obstacles that we've had to overcome, injuries, things like that. Really just to, one, I think it's fun to see. You guys can tell us if I'm way off piece, but sometimes it's nice to see what your coaches do. Like I always like to see what top people in the game are doing with their training and nutrition. I'm not saying I'm top person in the game, but Ryan and Taylor. But yeah, I think it's good just to kind of have an inside look of like, well, what do the coaches do, when they have to prep for photo shoots and things? Because, there's like 20 of us all getting in shape for this event.
So it's good to relate as well to people who are more experienced and things, to be like, oh, do they go through similar challenges that I go through, or do they have to make similar decisions that I have to make, and all this type of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, I think like as coaches, people think, oh, we don't have these problems or we don't have to overcome obstacles. And it's like, we're all exactly the same. We've just faced them a lot more often, and we're a little bit better at dealing with them.
Yeah. So we'll go with you first, Taylor. So you were probably,
In fact, he's had something on every weekend. He is.
yeah. So
a very erratic prep.
yeah, but
Turbulence everywhere.
I think your saving grace though was knowing that it was gonna be turbulent.
Yes, yeah.
And so it's kind of like the pilot has told you that turbulence is gonna happen before you take off.
Yeah.
So when it happens, you're like, we knew this was gonna happen.
Brace yourself.
Yeah. Whereas it hasn't been kind of like a shock, and everything hasn't come completely without notice. But yeah, just talk a little bit about that in terms of where you were, say 8 weeks ago when we first started, where you are now in terms of like training, calorie intake, and what events you've had in between that have had to make you kind of adapt and change your progress. Process.
I guess it's like you say, 8 weeks, and I think I could have done the job in 8 weeks, maybe 10 weeks, of if I had a clean run. But I knew back in March that I didn't have a clean run, so it was like it's going to be much easier for me to start really early, because it's like when I know it's going to be there's going to be barriers and obstacles quite frequently. The more time I can give myself, the better. Yeah. So what I did do back in March is I think I did like 6 to 8 weeks.
I think it was 6 when he was
6 weeks where I really cranked it hard because I had nothing on at that time. So I was like, well, while I've got this period of time now where my hunger levels are fine, I got no real social events coming up, I'm not traveling at all, I'm just going to crank it now for 6 so I can get within a stone's throw of where I need to be. So then when all these barriers and obstacles do start to pop up, it's not far for me to go. Yeah. So I was like, say 10 weeks out, I was probably more like 3 weeks out.
Yeah.
In terms of the body composition that I was at.
Yeah.
Because then in the last 8 weeks, I've had my birthday celebrations. I had a planned spa weekend away with the missus. I've had family birthday celebrations. So I had like my old man's. I had a stag do in Marbella, my brother's stag do 2 weeks out.
So they call that a bachelor party. So
Bachelor party,
bachelor party. Ours are a bit crazier.
Yeah. There were no spa days. And so it's like I had all these things coming up. Like I had friends visiting from up from up north. So they're going to want to come down. They're going to want to go out, have some food, maybe have some drinks. So all these things that were frequently occurring, and it was like, okay, yeah, I can sacrifice some of these things. There were some that I was just like, look, I'm just not going to eat or drink for them. But then I couldn't get out of them all. And I didn't want to get out of them all either. Like I still wanted to engage in some of these things, So it was the fact that I was ready early really helped. But then it's like I had to plan these things accordingly. And that's where, I was having a conversation with one of my clients yesterday about this. And it's like, you need to plan. Yeah. Like if you are someone who travels, if you are someone who likes to social consume, if you are someone who engages in these types of events, you cannot just turn up and see what happens. Like this stag do now, this was, or the pie, this was 2 weeks out of a photo shoot. If I just rocked up to be like, oh, let's just see how it goes, well, it would have gone horrendously. Like it would have just been like lager, pizzas, beers, which although doesn't sound horrendous, would have looked horrendous when I rocked up with a gunt. Yeah. So I was like, right. So for example, that's the most recent one that I've had to manage. So what I did in the run-up is I pulled about an extra 400 calories a day out. So for about 5 days in the run-up, so I'd reserved about 2,000 calories, boom, in that reserve. And I knew I was going to pull 400 out in the 5 days after. So that's 4,000 calories there that I've reserved either side. So now I've got plenty of wiggle room when I actually get out there. And then when I was out there, I had sussed out, okay, where are we staying? Do I have access to a grocery store nearby? I looked, about 5 to 10 minute walk away, grocery store. Fantastic. So when I arrived, I went there, stocked up on fat-free Greek yogurt, like packets of cooked deli meat. So I got convenient proteins. And again, in Spain, the access to like fresh fruit and veg is actually phenomenal. Like it was only a small store, but there were like 500-gram pots of like pineapple, watermelon, berries, like really nice fresh fruit. So I stocked up on all that as well. So for the 3-4 days that I was out there, I pretty much just stuck to protein and fiber the whole time. I wasn't tracking anything to the T because I was somewhat rat-assed for part of it. So I can't imagine it was going to be the best tracking. So I was like, right, if I just stick to proteins and fiber, and then from a drink standpoint, I wasn't having like beers, wines, cocktails. Like I think I had 2 cocktails on the final day because I knew I had got out of it scot-free type thing. So I was like, okay, I'm sort of done. I just stuck to like single spirit diet sodas the whole time, either vodka, spiced rum, Diet Coke, soda, whatever it is. And then when I actually got back from it, I was actually looking leaner. I was like, oh, I've gone away on a stag do, got pretty rat-assed, and come back looking better than I did when I left.
Yeah.
That's not saying I would do that for 8 weeks and expect to look good at the end of it. But it's like just by getting ready early, preparing either side, and then making smart decisions while I was there, it shows that you can still engage in these types of events and not have to sacrifice your progress. Like we're talking about getting ready for a photo shoot. This is not just like I want to lose a couple of pounds. Yeah. Like I've got to be pretty lean for this. So, but again, as long as I just plan in advance, I mapped things out, I made smart choices, I was able to get through it and not hinder my progress much, if anything. But it's the planning is the key thing. You cannot just rock up to these events. Like, one of my guys rocked up to an event, didn't plan for it accordingly, didn't let me know, just turned up to these, it was like a reunion weekend where him and his friends all get together. They're in the middle of nowhere. They booked accommodation. They got like a house, turned up. Oh, there was no food there. It was just like cakes and chips and beers. And I'm like, well, what did you think was going to be there? Like you go into like a reunion with
we've got our white fish, we've got our broccoli,
tilapia, all weighed out as well. Actually,
I was like, because in Ziploc bags for you.
Yeah. Like you know what those events entail. So it's like, well, if you plan for them accordingly, you can then bring your own food, or you can suss out access to some better foods. So it's, and then if as long as you do that, you can normally get away with these events pretty well.
Yeah. Planning ahead of time is crucial, isn't it?
Yeah,
You know, like if you go into the environment with a plan, you're more likely to get what you want out of it. Whereas if you just go in and hope for the best.
And that's been the common theme for every event that I've had. Like my dad's birthday meal was all planned out. My birthday meal was all planned out. I had a family weekend for my nephew's birthday, was all planned out. Friends coming down to visit. Every restaurant we went to, I had pre-looked at it and been like, okay, this is what I'm going to have. Everything has been planned out. Because if I hadn't have done that, it would have been an absolute disaster. And it was quite stressful. Yeah. Like throughout this whole time, I've been like, oh, I got this another thing to do. And I was like saying to my missus, I was like, this is a nightmare. I was like, I got all this stuff going on and I'm trying to get ready for this photo shoot that I got. It was such a pain, but the planning just, it made it so much easier.
It's such a good example of like, one, you can partake and still stick to your plan. But two, it's also, it can be inconvenient. Yeah. And it's hard to do. Like it is hard to do. That's why most people just give up when it's like, oh, screw it, I'll just get back on plan on Monday. And again, this is a good example because this is quite a extreme example where you're looking to be, you know, probably in the sharpest you'll look this year, you know, and it's not just, oh, I want to be kind of in shape. It's like, no, I want to be looking great for this photo shoot and this event. So you do get much less wiggle room where like if you were just trying to look a little bit better, your planning would be slightly different where maybe you don't pull 400 calories like prior to the stag. You just kind of see where you land afterwards and do a bit of cleanup if needed. You're happy to have beers and stuff. And it's like, hey, if you gain 6 pounds, it'll come off in a couple of weeks, no biggie.
Yeah.
Whereas when you have that time constraint, especially 2 weeks, your margin of error has to be much less. But it doesn't mean that you then go to your brother like, I'm not going to your stag because I have this photo shoot. And it also doesn't mean that you're not eating any of the foods that are provided or you're not having any alcohol or anything like that. You know, a week out from the shoot, the plan might be different again.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you are going to be a bit more restrictive and it's like, I'm going to have 1 drink per night and you're very kind of focused. But it like, this is where like the term, it depends. Because it's like, well, what's the outcome that you're after? And the fact that you were able to plan ahead. And I bet the plans that you would put in place for each of these didn't go identical to the plan in any of the situations.
No.
It's like you had this is the perfect plan that can happen, but then friends arrive late and then it's like, well, now we're going out to eat 4 hours later than we had planned. I need to get another meal in. Now I need to readjust what I'm going to order. And you're like, fucking hell, that's stressful. But like, it never pans out exactly as you plan it. But having that plan in the first place is way better than just winging it. Being like, oh, hopefully it works out. It's like, that's...
And
like,
the challenge is there was one evening where I was well oiled, put it that way. And we were looking for somewhere to eat. And my plan was to have like go to like some sort of place and have like a chicken salad, really, even if it was like a kebab shop, and just get like, oh, I'll have the 2 chicken skewers and a mixed salad bowl, and I'll just have that. Next year we can't find one, and we're just looking around, and I was like, where are we going? Ended up in like a burger joint, and the boys were all looking towards these burgers, and I'm looking around like, oh my, I'm looking at the menu, and it's an absolute bomb site. I'm like, oh, this is a nightmare, and I'm well oiled, so I'm like, I could just have a massive burger, because the fact that I had pre-planned, I banked calories I planned to bank calories because I did have some wiggle room, or I probably had more wiggle room than I allowed myself. But I was like, I know this is still not the smartest move. And then I went on my phone, I looked, I was like, there's a place around the corner. And I went, oh, boys, there's a place around the corner that does this. And then was like, oh, sound, let's go. Yeah. And everyone just went. So like there was moments where I was like, this I can feel myself like this massive thing. But I was like, oh no, it's so yeah, it didn't go perfectly to plan. Like we had a private chef come over to the villa, and he made and there was steaks. It was actually really good. I had good access to food. There was steaks, big salad bowl, chicken breasts. There were some potatoes. There were cheesecakes, bowls of fruit, bread rolls. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to, I'm protein and fiber. Like this is, so the whole trip was just protein and fibers. but then the bread rolls looked banging, and I was I could do with a bread roll, mate. So I had a chicken breast in a bread roll. I had that, and then I was like, I could do with another one of those. That was really good. And then I split half, and I had another half. So it's like, did it go perfect? No. Like, I'm not saying you're going to look at me in a week's time and be like, I can see that bread roll sat on it now. But it's like, it was, again, I didn't stick perfectly to the plan that I had, but I had a very good detailed plan, which allowed me to stay on course.
Yeah.
And again, the outcome's the same.
Yeah.
I'm still pale.
But so now we're like a week out. Are you where you need to be for the shoot? And what's the strategy now between now and next Saturday when we're getting pumped up and taking pictures?
So I've got it's gone perfect. I came back from the stag do, and I got straight back to it. Literally, like, I didn't wait till the following day. So the day we were leaving, which was the Monday morning, I was tracking from the Monday morning. So I took some whey protein powder with me. Again, planned it in advance to make sure I've always got a lean protein source to hand. I had a protein shake in the morning with a coffee in the airport. And then I just fasted until I got home, which, again, was the plan was to get home up by like 2:30. Ended up getting home at like 5:30, which was a ball ache. I was starving by the time I got home, but it's like, again, that's just the way it works. Had got straight back to my meals then that day. So Monday has already been a solid day again. It could have gone, because I woke up in Spain still. So that could have been, Monday's a write-off as well. But I got back in the saddle as fast as I could. Monday was good. Tuesday was good. And then this week, I depleted down. As I said, I pulled calories in a little bit this week to cater. And now I'm doing a slight refeed over the weekend. I guess to answer the first part of the question, yes, I'm ready. I'm ready to go now. Like, I could do the photo shoot in an hour's time, and I would be ready to go somewhat.
Get some tan on first.
Yeah,
mate.
a bit of give me tan and then an hour. And then so I'm doing almost like a bit of a trial refeed now over the weekend, 3,200, 200, and then I'm gonna go back low again then for the Monday, Tuesday. Well, I guess I'll assess as I go. But the general plan right now is to refeed for 3 days over the weekend, and then pull it back in a little bit then for a few days, and then the final few days before the shoot, then I can start refeeding back up, as long as all goes to plan. Or if I do 3 days now at refeed and I'm still feeling relatively flat, well, I'll just continue that feed throughout the week. So I'll assess day to day as I go with how I look and how I feel. But yeah, the provisional plan is in place. I'm ready to go. So now it's just cruise in, really, and don't get hurt is the plan.
Nice. No, I like it. Ryan, how has yours been over the last 8 weeks? What's, because you've probably made the fewest adjustments in terms of, because again, you stay pretty sharp year round. And so it's really just fine tuning, and you can afford to drop very, very slowly and be in shape. So kind of what's the last 8 weeks been like for you?
Yeah, that's what so you're right there. I only had to change. The only thing I've changed is I've dropped my calories by 800 a day total. And I made that adjustment straight away. So I went from 4,000 average a week to 3. It seems like a lot, but obviously it's relative. Yeah, it's all relative, yeah.
Sure.
Super active.
3,200 average. And I stayed there. And my goal was to drop around, I think it was like 6 to 8 pounds. And I've dropped closer to, I think I've dropped 10 pounds. So I've dropped a little bit more. Nice. I was always doing 15K steps a day and training 3 to 5 days a week. And I've kept that exactly the same. And that has actually seen me through to where I'm ready now for the photo shoot. But one of the biggest things I've noticed as I've got leaner, and obviously the deficit adds up over time, I've got a lot more tired. So what I would normally do is I would have 3,200 average calories for the week, but I would have low days in the week and then high days on the weekend, and my average would just balance out.
What does that look like? So what's like a low day and what's a high day?
So a low day is around about 2,500, and then my high days are like 4.5, 5.
Oh wow, okay. So you go pretty big at weekends.
Yeah, so pretty big. And what happened was, I've got an appetite, so I can eat.
I know.
But what I noticed was I was getting like to like Wednesday, and I was really struggling. Where it's like it's not worth struggling that much for like some extra food on the weekend. So I put a high day midweek. So I'd have like a high day on a Wednesday and then like a Saturday and a
Like a
Sunday.
pick me up, just
They'll
midweek
pick me up because
Yeah.
it like spread, and it actually increased my adherence, because I was like, right, I've got 2 days now where I'm on low. I have a high day and then another day or two and then another 2
Yeah.
high days. So you split the week up. And that has served me very, very well. And that's the biggest thing I've done, which has probably kept me on plan the most.
I did a full prep with high days, Wednesdays and Saturdays. Definitely not like to that extreme, you know, maybe like an extra 100 gram of carb on those 2 days. But I found it as well. It was, I'd have 2 really good training sessions Monday and Tuesday. And then the Wednesday one would always be like, meh. And then I start getting cravings and stuff in the afternoon. And if I didn't have that high day, by Thursday, Friday, my performance will just take a massive shit. And then by the weekend, I'm just like a zombie.
You've always got, you're only ever like 2 or 3 days away from a refeed as well.
Yeah.
So to
Mentally,
suck it up for 2 or 3
yeah.
days is normally pretty easy.
Yeah.
It's when it's like, where's the end? When's the end of this coming?
But this is where because if you look at a lot of the scientific research on refeeds, they like the general consensus is like back-to-back days tends to be more effective when it comes to like decreasing ghrelin or like increasing leptin, like all the benefits that you're looking for a refeed. It seems to be better doing them back-to-back. But this is a perfect example where on paper that looks great, but if you're training hard, if you get too depleted by like day 3, it makes way more sense to split them up so you can keep your performance going.
Well, on that day as well, I've paired it with my leg day, because that's the day I feel like the most crap as well. So I was like, well, at least I'm going to get a little bit more food, feel a little bit better, and I'm probably going to get a little bit more out of that leg session. But another thing why I think is really important to have these high days as well is exactly what Taylor said. So now I know if I have my high days on the weekend, I've almost been, because I'm pretty much ready now, it's almost like a pre-carb up. And
Like
you
a
can
practice run, yeah.
which is kind of like fell naturally just the way I set my calories. And I know I always look better on the Monday. Now, it may not go like that this week, but I know if I refeed on Saturday and Sunday, I look my best on Monday. So it may make sense now to have like a refeed 1 or 2 days before the photo shoot.
Yeah. So Thursday, Friday would be your high days,
Yeah.
and then ready for Saturday. Yeah.
And
The same as me from a like provisional standpoint.
Yeah.
But if you look, what we are doing is we're making these logical decisions based on the feedback that we're getting. And it's like, again, it's a bit difficult because we're speaking a lot about refeeds and high days here. And then people are going to look and be like, oh, these boys are shredded. And they seem on the high days all the time.
Yeah.
But it's like, in order to, when you are very lean, you're much more sensitive to things like fatigue.
Yeah.
So like it's those days where you need to refeed back up become much more frequent. But if you've got like 20, 30 pounds of fat to go, like you're going to be fine. Like you can just keep on trucking. Like again, I did 6 weeks back to back.
Yeah.
I had one high day. I just cranked it for 6 weeks. Because back then I had lots of body fat stores to actually dip into. Whereas now there's not as many. And I'll notice if I just skip a meal, like if I go quite a long period of time, I can feel it. I feel a little bit more fatigued because it's like there's just not much fat stores now to actually dip into.
Yeah.
So it's like we're speaking about high days and stuff, but not as much with Ryan because he was lean anyway, so you probably needed them more sort of frequently. But for me and you who weren't quite as lean as Ryan was, we can crank it for quite extended periods without actually having to refeed back up.
Yeah. No, that's also, I mean, that it ties in perfectly because the start of mine, I went pretty aggressive. You know,
Well, you probably had the most to go, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, like, and that's been the funny thing is like, you know, I looked like I had about 30 pounds to drop. And then when I actually look at the scale difference, it's about 16 pounds. And I dropped most of that in the first 3 weeks. And it's pretty much stayed the same, but I've just got leaner and leaner every single week.
Yeah.
And I think that's a combination of like, one, my training has been dialed in. Like I'd normally train hard, but there's levels, you know, and it's like now I've got to focus. That's been one part. I think another part is just my overall adherence and getting in enough protein. Like I cranked my protein up and I haven't missed it. Steps, sleep, like everything has been a lot more regimented. So I think like it's not like I've lost fat and gained muscle. It's like I've lost fat and regained muscle from just fucking around for a few months of being injured, you know, and not training the way I've been training. But I started out, you know, 2,000 calories a day, 15,000 steps and 30 minutes on the bike. And I did that for like 3 or 4 weeks with no refeeds. And I was fine. Like I wasn't, like, you know, legs were a bit sore, but like I wasn't hungry, didn't go flat, anything like that. Now, even I think my calories now are around 2,300 and I'm flagging. Like, and it's like, it feels way harder than that 2,000. So even though on paper it's more food, and I've got rid of the bike now because my hip was getting aggravated. So I'm just doing 15,000 steps. So my output's lower, my calories are higher, but my fatigue is way high, but I'm still dropping. And so it's like, exactly like you were saying, you can handle that aggressiveness at the start because your body's way more resistant to fatigue, and it's got that backup, fat stores.
Yeah. It's like, I could just under fuel forever. I've got loads waiting for me.
And then as you get leaner, your body's going to naturally go, well, let's, crank up these hunger hormones because we're getting close to the E sign on our gas tank.
Yeah.
And so it's gonna remind you today, hey, you should go eat something. And then the leaner you get, it bugs you more and more. But yeah, I mean, like in terms of like, mine's been really, really consistent. I've probably had the least like occasions and stuff to do and travel and things like that, because I got back from Scottsdale like 8 weeks ago or something, and that's when I started. And I really haven't had to travel anywhere. I live on my own, so like everything, I've really got like the best case scenario. So like, if you look at, I'll show my before and afters when after the photo shoot, but like you look at it and it's like, it would, and this isn't blowing smoke up my own ass, but it looks more like a 20-week transformation.
Yeah.
However, the environment that I'm in is the dream of dream environment to make drastic changes in body composition.
Yeah.
I set my own work schedule to an extent. We obviously have certain meetings and stuff, but I kind of set my own schedule. I prep all my own food and I buy what I need, and it's kept here. The gym is a 2-mile drive away, like 5 minutes in the car. It's a nice area to walk, and get my steps in. The weather has happened to be really good as well, which is nicer to go out in the mornings. Like, I can control every single variable. Whereas when you throw kids in there, spouse, like having to travel or like have social obligations and stuff, like every single one of those things like sets you back on like the optimal. And so it doesn't mean that you can't get the results, but it's probably just going to take a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So I think it's been one of the best preps that I've ever done. Yet it's been one of the most aggressive. But I think the other thing is like, I've done so many of them now. I know what all of the feelings are. And so, if I was using the scale weight as an indicator of my progress, the last 7 weeks have been a failure. Yet you guys have seen my progress pictures. It's like you're ready. Like, you're ready for photo shoot now. So
do you find on that front, sorry to chime in there, do you find on that front though is, and this is what I've noticed over the last several years as well, is when I find scale data is obviously a useful metric at all times, but it's a really useful metric when someone's got a lot of body fat to go.
Yeah.
And I find once someone is starting to get in shape and they're pretty lean, you'll see the scale data, it's a lot more difficult to interpret. And that's where you need the photos, you need some measurements even to really get an understanding of how things are progressing. And like I've had clients where scale data, I'm like looking at it and I'm like, oh, it doesn't seem to be trending that well. It's definitely slowed down significantly. And then I see a photo and I'm like, oh, crikey. Like, yeah, okay, yeah. Now, especially with guys, like you said, where training sometimes was a little bit sloppy, protein intake was probably a little bit poor, and then suddenly everything is now, they're training hard, their diet's spot on, and then the scale data starts to slow down.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got like 50 pounds, you're not going to lose 50 pounds of fat and see no difference in scale data.
Yeah.
But it's like when you've only got a few more pounds to go, sometimes it sort of just wavers up and down.
And
it's
like,
not quite
I
the
found,
same.
because you'll have clients like this as well, but I'm extremely sensitive to water and sodium. So, if I had a couple pickles.
And rom-coms.
Yeah, and I love rom-coms. But like if, some guys can have like a really high salt intake and their weight fluctuation really doesn't change much. I gained 7 pounds, from a high salt day, with water intake and everything else being the same. If I added a couple pickles to some of my meals, it just blew up. But that's where like the last few weeks, I'll weigh myself just to, because if I see any drastic changes in the scale, then I know I probably need to maybe feed up a little bit today. Or if I have a big jump, I'll take a closer look at what I'm eating. Maybe something's not sitting well or my legs are really inflamed or whatever. But really, like, I'm assessing it by how I look in the mirror in the morning. I'll pinch certain areas because I know what it feels like. And I'm like, that's definitely leaner. I might see an extra vein and I'm like, that wasn't there. And, I can tell when, the difference between like what water weight feels like and what body fat feels like. It's almost like real jiggly.
Yeah.
And versus
it's
like
a
solid
wobble to it.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's what, like I'm holding a couple pounds of water today and things like that. So like I assess it far more with that than scale weight. But when you're new to this stuff, you don't know the difference. You'll be like, is that water or is that fat? Like, I don't know. Like, am I hungry? Am I depleted? Do I need to feed up today? And it's not, because I could eat more every single day.
Yeah.
But I know when I get to a point where I'm like, I need to eat some more carbs today, because if I go another day, I'm probably going to keep getting leaner, but then my performance is really going to tank. And then it might even lead to a binge. If I go too flat, because my body, like my brain is just going to be like, go eat everything. And then the floodgates are going to open. So it's like, give it a little bit to just appease it now, refill the tank a little bit, within reason. So, it might be like an extra 100, 200 grams of carbs and then back on the wagon. But also like you mentioned with those refeed days and stuff, a lot of clients, one, they don't empty the tank enough. It's like they're refeeding on a full tank.
Yeah.
And so it's like I went 4 to 6 weeks on 2,000 calories. At that point, the tank's empty. And so even if the tank's empty and then I do a refeed, maybe I get to like a 75% tank and then it goes back to zero, like this. If you start with a full tank and you deplete to say 50% and then you refeed 75%, now you're at 125% tank.
Yeah.
And then you deplete again and now you're at 75%. Then you refeed again, and then you're like 150%. And you're like, why are these refeeds not working? I'm gaining weight. It's like you didn't get flat enough in the first place.
Yeah.
And so most diets, like if you see people that do carb cycling and stuff, when you have like those really high carb days, they only work because you have really low carb days where you are just flat as a pancake. Yeah. But like with scale fluctuations and all of those things, I just don't think it's worth doing with a lot of clients that we have, because you're having to plan out 3 different days per week, low, medium, high days. Then if they're not experienced, then, once you get a bit of carbs in on the high day, the floodgates open, and then 300 grams of carbs turns into 600. Yeah. And then now the low days have got to go lower, and it almost turns into this kind of starve binge kind of cycle.
But there's also a slightly different, we're prepping to look a certain way on a certain date. So the approach, that's a short-term approach for a short-term look.
Yeah.
Whereas for most people that we coach, obviously we coach guys who will have a photo shoot or whatever as well, but we're coaching guys to live a better lifestyle, and as a result of living a better lifestyle, you happen to be in shape.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, yeah, you will push the envelope a little bit harder, but it's not so I can't think of the term. I guess it's not so specific in the approach that we take. Yeah. It's more like, okay, well, like, you're not going to go super high and low days when someone's traveling with business meetings and got their family and stuff. It's like, I need to make this process as consistent and stable as possible to ensure that it's easy to stick to. Yeah. So it's like that. It's short-term goals can use short-term approaches for it, but the long-term goals, there need to be a long-term approach for it as well.
And then as well, like when you're more experienced and you got more muscle mass and stuff, like if I wanted to say, like, fully refeed from a completely depleted state, we're talking like 1,000 grams of carb, like over 1 to 2 days, which is like some guys can't even do it. Like I remember, and John will attest to this, when we did his first photo shoot prep like 3 or 4 years back, we did like a really high carb day. I think like maybe 2 days prior. So we kind of were doing like the fill and spill approach, where we're just going to like fill up the tank and almost overspill, and then go back to our diet day for like 1 or 2 days, drop the water weight, but then you're not training, so you kind of keep the glycogen. And it was like 900 grams of carbs, but I said I want your fat below 50. So it was like, here's what you can have: bagels, jelly, rice cakes, kids cereal, rice, potato, oats, all of these things. Got to keep the fat down. And then we brought protein down as well. He couldn't do it. Like, he got to I think 650, 700, and he couldn't do it without the fat going up. Yeah. And he was just stuffed. Like, it's really hard to do when you do it properly. Like getting 900 grams of carbs in through like honey and rice.
Yeah.
You know, you're eating every hour. You
Yeah.
know, to try and get it in.
To escalate just carbohydrate without escalating the other things, it is tough. Yeah.
But like you said, like with 90% of our clients, it's never going to get to that that nuanced, you know, for that look. But it's we were saying the other day, like it's kind of been nostalgic for us in the sense of like bodybuilding preps, where it's got all of the upsides of, we enjoy the process, you know, you do enjoy a little bit of the suffering and seeing yourself get sharper and stuff. And we get to do it all at the same time, because normally one of us will be prepping for a show and the other two are just like, he's boring twat. This like we can't go anywhere because he's eating fillet steak. And so the fact that we're all doing it at the same time has been a lot funner.
Yeah.
The accountability has been there as well, because we'll be
a lot funner.
Yeah.
You get a lot funner, a lot more fun.
A lot funner. It's new word. You can steal that, guys. And I'm going to check the dictionary for that, see if that exists. But also, because it's a photo shoot, we don't have to go to the extreme in terms of body fat, because there's a point where how we look at this photo shoot, it's probably going to realistically be 6 to 8 weeks out from a bodybuilding show, where you have to really go even more extreme. And that's where all the real negative health effects happen. And that's where, you know, binging afterwards and regaining all the weight happens. So we've avoided that. But also, we don't have to, well, you might have to, Taylor, to fake tan. But not to the extreme like you do at bodybuilding shows. You don't have to wear the bright pants. You don't have to plan a routine and pose and compete. Yeah, we get to have fun at a photo shoot, get some cool pictures, and then all go celebrate afterwards. Where there's no bullshit trophies and it's just a different mindset, because like if we compete to win, and you don't place as well, then you're stewing on it for a few days and things like that, whereas this is like had all the upsides, which I've really enjoyed, because I love the process of competing in bodybuilding. It's just when you go to that extreme, the toll that it takes on everything else is like, we got way too much responsibility now with our careers. Whereas when we were competing, you're working in a gym or doing something like that really didn't require any bandwidth. No. Now it's like, there's a lot of fucking steak every single day. And I can't afford to be a zombie. And for the reward, which is financially negative, because you have to pay to compete. For the sake of, 5 judges subjectively saying you look better than other guys
who are out of shape themselves.
And I say all this because I still watch bodybuilding. Like I still watch the Olympia, and I still enjoy it. But the actual competition, I think so many people do it at the wrong time, or they just shouldn't do it.
Like I loved, again, we're doing the part of it that we enjoyed, and we remove. And I don't like posing in my pants. I don't like putting
at the
on
end of the bed, maybe.
When the missus is watching, but it's like I didn't like all that stuff, but I do like I'm almost like for a photo shoot. Like with a bodybuilding show, you have to almost suffer the last 6-8 weeks.
Truly,
you are levels suffering to the game, big time. But for the photo shoot, I'm almost teetering on the edge of suffering. There's that little bit of like, oh God, I'm tired sometimes, and my recovery's not quite as good, and I'm going a bit hypo every now and again. I don't feel the best, but it's just that it's a little taste of it. It's not that I'm hypo and I can't eat for the next 3 days either, and I've got to train legs tomorrow. It's just like, here we go.
I would say on that, because I'm almost coming out of this diet now, where I've gone past the hardest point. And the hardest point, I would probably have 4 to 5 days out of 7 where I'd feel a bit guff, and then the other days I feel fine. And performance has been great in the gym. Whereas with bodybuilding prep, I'm guaranteed to feel like guff at least 7 days, but 4 to 5 days, I feel like total shit. So it's like, you're either going to feel like shit or you're going to feel like complete shit and not even be able to function. Like even holding a conversation, you're just kind of like, what? Like you don't even want to speak to people. You're that exhausted and your body is doing everything it can to conserve energy. It's like, you don't move, you sit down and you're just kind of like, and if someone asks you to do something, you're like, no. Like, I'm just not going to do it. Like
everything's hard.
Literally it's like pulling teeth to get out of bed. And then you get brief moments in the day where you get like a spike in energy, maybe at the gym or something, and you look all right, and then you go back to feeling like shit. And so we've managed to avoid all of that.
Yeah.
For a bit of discomfort, because that's really what it is. It's not truly suffering. It's just a bit of discomfort. And I think we're probably going to look pretty epic.
Pretty good.
It was pretty sharp.
I'm excited for it. So we're all going to go get a workout in now as a final group workout before
we set off.
Before the shoot. But really, I mean, there's no real kind of, I guess, education lessons to this one, other than plans change. No matter how many times we've done this, no two diets are the same. I think using previous diets can put you in the ballpark, but to assume that you're going to get the same results from the previous diet, I think is just wrong, because I've just seen this in the real world too many times, where maybe your last diet, you dieted on 3,000 calories and did 10,000 steps and you got shredded. You do that this time and fuck all happens. And you're like, oh, I had to go to 2,000 calories and 20,000 steps. And then the one after, it's somewhere in the middle. And there's really no rhyme or reason. All you can do is look at the past ones and go, well, that's not a bad start point to kind of go from, but it's probably going to be different again. And so it's really just planning ahead and tweaking your plan based on the feedback that you have to make an educated guess of what you think is going to happen next.
Yeah. And that's literally where we've got to now. We've been doing this all this time, and like my cues to fatigue, my cues of when I need to refeed, my cues of when I'm feeling flat, my cues. I've been developing these over a 15-year period of doing this nonsense, and then it's like, and as more of a novice, they might not seem as obvious, but your coach will allow you to identify those much better, and over time you will then be able to identify those yourself as well. So the more you engage with the coach and get him to explain as to why you're taking certain approaches and why you're making certain decisions, you can then learn that for yourself as well. And then you'll be better at executing this type of thing. And you'll be better at understanding why you feel a certain way and why things work a certain way and why you're not, or you are getting results as well.
Yep. Awesome. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify. Really looking forward to sharing the outcome of this photo shoot for all of our clients that are listening that are coming to the Superhuman event, which is in 2 weeks' time.
2 weeks.
Or less 13 days. So it starts on Thursday, the 27th. It's also, wink, wink, my birthday on the 28th, on the Friday. Yeah. So if anyone wants to bring me cheesecake, cigars, good whiskey, I was going to say something else then. I'm not going to say it.
PC, Ben, PC.
But really, really looking forward to seeing all of our clients out there. And it's really just a big celebration of you guys getting insane results with our program. So it's going to be a blast to hang out, get a couple workouts in, and just get to celebrate you guys. So appreciate you all for listening. We really enjoy doing this podcast. And so if we can help just one person with one bit of advice or make you laugh whilst you're doing your Bulgarian split squats to make them less painful.
We have to be bloody funny to make someone laugh doing those, isn't it?
We might not be there yet. But yeah, we appreciate you guys. Thank you. And we'll see you next time.
If you love this show, please like, share, and leave us a 5-star review so that we can help more people. I'm John Madsen, Superhuman CEO, reminding you to always go get what's yours.